TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant highlights that while the center of military gravity has shifted from Gaza to Lebanon, Israel remains committed to its war objectives vis-à-vis the Gaza Strip. The US, France, Germany, Italy, and Britain call for de-escalation in the Middle East amid prospects of regional conflagration. The United States reiterates its unwavering commitment to the defense of the State of Israel. Israel has officially redirected the so-called center of gravity in relation to its military engagements from the Gaza Strip to the northern front vis-à-vis Lebanon. Nevertheless, during a top defense brass meeting, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stressed that Israel will persist with its operational activity in the Gaza Strip to return the 101 hostages that remain in Hamas captivity and will not relent until Hamas is destroyed.
Over the past several days, we have held a series of important discussions. This is a new phase of the war. There are significant opportunities, but also significant risks. Hezbollah feels that it is being persecuted, and the sequence of our military and defense actions will persist. Our goal is to ensure the safe return of Israel's northern communities to their homes. As time goes by, Hezbollah will pay an increasing price. At the same time, we will continue our efforts to ensure the return of the hostages and to dismantle the Hamas terrorist organization.
It is important to know that while the Israeli Security Cabinet recently added the return of Israel's northern residents to their communities as a war objective, Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, who addressed his followers from an undisclosed bunker yesterday, asserted that his terror group, which receives its directives from Iran, won't allow Israel to achieve its war goal.
I say to Netanyahu and to Gallant and the enemy's army and entity, you will not be able to return the Israeli residents of the north to the north. You will not be able to return the occupied settlers to the colonies in the north, and do what you want.
The remarks by the Iranian puppet were made as he addressed his followers after a devastating week for his organization, in which Israel's intelligence agencies were allegedly responsible for a series of explosions of the communication systems which Hezbollah employs.
Tuesday and Wednesday were heavy and bloody days for us. They were also a big test. We were able to, with the help of Allah, and I will talk about that shortly, we will be able to overcome this test with pride and with our heads raised high. The important thing is to not let the blow knock you down, no matter how big and strong it is, and I tell you with all reassurance, confidence, and reliance on Allah that this big, strong, and unprecedented blow did not knock us down and will not knock us down, Allah willing.
It is worth noting that a circulating document of Hezbollah's intelligence directorate, which Israeli intelligence officials have indicated to TV7 seems largely accurate, indicates the scope of Hezbollah's actual losses, which far exceeded the official statements by the Iranian proxy. According to the document, almost 900 Hezbollah, as well as RGC and Ansar Allah terror operatives, were killed in the so-called pager and walkie-talkie attacks, with over 1,200 of the thousands injured identified as either blinded or mortally wounded.
Undoubtedly, we have been subjected to a major attack, in terms of security and humanitarian aspects, unprecedented in the history of resistance in Lebanon at least, and unprecedented in the history of Lebanon overall with this extent of aggression, and it could be unprecedented in the history of the conflict with the Israeli enemy all over the entire region. And it could be unprecedented in the world, this kind of killing, targeting, and crime.
Hezbollah's leader concluded his statement by pledging retribution.
There is no doubt that the aggression that occurred was a major one, and as I said before, unprecedented, and it will be met with a just punishment from where they can expect and far from their expectations.
Turning to Paris, where U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, during a joint press conference with his French counterpart Stéphane Séjourné, called for restraint and de-escalation in the Middle East, while further highlighting ongoing efforts to reach a ceasefire for the Gaza Strip.
France and the United States are united in calling for restraint and urging de-escalation when it comes to the Middle East in general and when it comes to Lebanon in particular. We continue to work to get a ceasefire for Gaza over the finish line. And as we discussed with some of you just a day ago in Egypt, we believe that remains both possible and necessary. But meanwhile, we don't want to see any escalatory actions by any party that make that even more difficult.
Secretary Blinken was visiting Paris as part of the foreign ministerial meeting with ministers of foreign affairs from France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom, with the latest developments vis-à-vis the Middle East topping the agenda.
Well, look, I've just come from a meeting with my US, French, German, and Italian counterpart. We, of course, discussed the situation in Lebanon, which is of huge concern at this time. And all of us are monitoring it very closely. And we are all very, very clear that we want to see a negotiated political settlement so that Israelis can return to their homes in northern Israel, and indeed Lebanese can return to their homes. And that's why tonight I'm calling for an immediate ceasefire from both sides so that we can get to that settlement, that political settlement that's required.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron published a film statement directed at the nation of Lebanon, emphasizing his efforts to avoid an all-out war between Iran, through its proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Israel.
Le Liban ne peut vivre dans la peur d'une guerre imminente.
Lebanon cannot live in fear of an imminent war, and I tell you very clearly, as I have told everyone, we must refuse this inevitability. Today, I had the opportunity to talk with your leaders, and also with key players in the crisis from Israel to Iran. I told them that Lebanon must be preserved and war avoided. And it is also up to your political leaders to follow this direction. And that is what I told them. A diplomatic path exists, it is demanding, and it is the one that France wants to follow for Lebanon with all its partners.
Pour le Liban, avec tous ses partenaires.
The French head of state went on to stress that no one wants a war between Israel and Hezbollah, except for those seeking adventurism at Lebanon's expense, in a vague reference to the malign aspirations of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Enfin,
finally, more than ever, you need a president at this moment to assume the leadership of the country in the face of the threats that weigh on you. And it is the responsibility of all political parties to take their responsibilities and the President of Parliament to bring them together as soon as possible.
President Macron concluded his statement by stressing that France stands by Lebanon in its hour of need.
Je le sais, dans la confusion.
I know that in confusion, in sorrow, hope is a rare commodity. In this confusion, in this sorrow, France stands by your side.
La France se tient à vos côtés.
Turning to the United States, where Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh highlighted that the U.S. military posture in the eastern Mediterranean Sea and the Central Command area of responsibility has remained largely unchanged. Asked further as to Washington's knowledge regarding the latest attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon, Singe essentially reiterated that the United States wasn't involved.
I'm not tracking any additional force posture changes in the Eastern Med or in the Central Command area of responsibility. Should that change, we'll keep you updated on that. In terms of the attacks that you referenced, first and foremost, the U.S. was not involved in any way, so I don't have anything to add on these particular separate incidences that we've seen. Separately, we are always concerned about escalation, and that's something that you've seen us reiterate throughout the readouts that the Secretary has done with, whether it be Minister Gallant or with other leaders around the world. We're certainly concerned about escalation. We know regional tensions are high. That's why you've seen such a push from different officials across this administration to push forward on a ceasefire deal. We believe ultimately that the best way to lessen tensions in the region is through diplomatic means. And that's what the Secretary is working toward.
Singe went on to elaborate on a phone conversation that was held between U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, in which the former reaffirmed the unwavering commitment of the United States to support Israel in the face of Iran's belligerent threats.
Yesterday, Secretary Austin spoke by phone with his Israeli counterpart, Minister of Defense Gallant, to review regional security developments and reiterate unwavering U.S. support for Israel in the face of threats from Iran, Lebanese Hezbollah, and Iran's other regional partners. The Secretary emphasized the U.S. commitment to deterring regional adversaries, de-escalating tensions across the region, and reaffirmed the priority of reaching a ceasefire deal that will bring home hostages held by Hamas, and an enduring diplomatic resolution to the conflict on the Israel-Lebanon border that will allow civilians on both sides to return home.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Separately, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider supporting our programs with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom u'mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.